there's this idea that people who have been through a lot are often the ones that want to help others the most. And when I first heard your story, I thought this immediately. You've experienced so many hardships in your career. And like I said before, giving back is just really commendable. And so I can see why you started mentorDINO, but could you really, from your perspective, share like what's the core why of why you started mentorDINO?
The why behind it, it's more just trying to help. So many professionals will acknowledge the gaps in the profession, will acknowledge that architecture school doesn't teach students nowadays. Even when I graduated, they didn't teach me exactly what I would be doing. And expecting firms to do it all, and firms are stressed and running thin, that they don't have time to do it. For anybody listening, take a look at your work calendar this week. How many back-to-back meetings do you have? Do you have any time in your day to even teach? Are you carving time to teach people? And when you're not teaching, you put people on a long leash and assume they're figuring it out. But then there's young professionals just trying to prove themselves, and oftentimes have a hard time admitting they don't know what they're doing, or they think they're doing it right, but there's the whole factor of you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't realize you're doing it wrong and you think you're doing it right, and the senior professional is not taking the time to go through the drawings, mark it up right, have time to QA the set before it goes out, and just assuming people go down that rabbit hole to really figure it out, can really be damaging to the profession. And I think the profession itself has started to just have so much devalue because the contractor's just getting bad sets of drawings. The architects don't know how to build anything anymore. The people on site just don't have that knowledge base and get the details going. And also the professional development side. People don't know how to delegate. There's actually levels of delegation, and understanding if you're at level 0 of delegation, you're not actually delegating at all. And you may think, oh, I'm delegating. Why am I not saving time in my day? Mm-hmm. And it's because you're not delegating at a high enough level yet, because you haven't built that trust with that professional. And when I learned about the levels of delegation in relation to trust, then I understood the issues I was having. So I trick myself into trusting people faster. And I know how to do that based on the way I can delegate tasks. So I can understand where that leash can go and mm-hmm. when they need to get pulled back. And I've even had great professionals. I had a young professional. I gave her a ceiling detail to do of axiom trim. And for any seasoned architect, we know what axiom trim is. We know what the detail is. And she drew it perfectly. And at the end, I was like, great, this all looks perfect. I don't even have any red lines. And she's like, fantastic. What did I just draw? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't even know what this is. And thankfully I could go find some in the office and show it to her installed, and then go online and show the videos on how everything's coming together, what it's for, what it looks like, why we do it in different situations. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize I needed to go to that level. And didn't realize the person wasn't also going to just go look it up themselves. It was just, mm-hmm. okay, you had me draw the detail, you do this and done. And she could have just said, great, and move on to the next task. But she at least advocated for herself to make sure she understood what she drew and why she drew it. Mm-hmm. And there's not enough of that training, and people don't take the time to do it, because as soon as it looks great, they just want to move on. But right. if it has a lot of red marks, they want to dive into it. So it's all of that, and teaching people how to teach too, because it's all a chicken before the egg thing. Like, you need to have the technical detail knowledge. You need to know how to teach, mentor, coach. Not everybody's a mentor, but you at least need to teach people on your teams how to draft and do things. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing if you don't want to coach somebody up, but you got to make sure your drawings are done right. And if people don't know they're not doing it right, then it's those senior professionals that end up working all the late hours, mm-hmm. because they feel they don't have time to teach. It'll be faster for them to just do it. Whereas if they laid a little bit better of a foundation to start, they could potentially get some time back in their day too. Because I just see really the more senior architects and principals actually burning out more than the younger professionals because they feel they have to constantly be working or even keeping up with their own schedule because they don't build in time to actually get their stuff done. So the why behind mentorDINO is just all those little lessons I learned along the way and seeing other people make those mistakes when they really don't need to. If there's a little bit more foundation work to start, if I could teach somebody in the first 3 years of their career how to delegate properly, how to build trust, not only with their team, but with their clients, how you can actually do a lot of business development when you do really well on projects and get things delivered on time and done thoroughly. You're there for the client in a pinch. Those things can really add up. And if you learn that early in your career rather than waiting to your senior professional, just imagine where the profession could be. If I could teach all the young professionals right now all of those things and ownership of their work now, in a decade from now, we're going to have a lot of really strong leaders. And for those in leadership roles, it's not hard to start and to start somewhere to working on your career. But it's that why. It's if I start now and I take baby steps and I can slowly help people around the country, no matter if they're a solo entrepreneur, a small firm, large firm, anybody type person, where will the profession be in 5 years?
So we've heard a bit about the why behind mentorDINO. I'm really curious about the how. How did you get started? What did you start with first? And how did you implement all of these big ideas that you had?
Yeah, so the first part I started with was actually recording professional development training. Beyond actually doing research, I was doing research over the summer and everything, and what I wanted to teach, what was important for young professionals, what do I often try to teach, and starting out with young professionals. And I even did some Revit videos as well. I really don't like doing Revit videos. They're not fun, and Revit's really expensive too. But the professional development side's where my passion is, where I can speak to my experiences to help them without sounding too negative about the profession, but saying, just do these baby steps, or how to receive delegated work, how to communicate back. For the number of times I was told, hey, this needs to be done ASAP. ASAP is not a deadline. Tell them when you need it. Do you need it by 4 p.m. today, or can it be done tomorrow? Because you need to tell them the expectation, because if not, you cannot be upset when they thought ASAP was by the end of the week. Or if there's issues between two project managers that just don't talk to each other and they both have a deadline the same day, and it's like, I can't do both. I can do one. Can one be moved to the next day? Or do you need somebody else to do it, rather than killing yourself over it and then it being inaccurate, incomplete? You don't have time to check your work. Or just teaching people, don't draft 3 pages of interior elevations. Draft 4. Just 4 views. And then go get feedback. So then the senior architect's not killing themselves going through pages and pages of work, and they just, okay, here's these 4, get the comments, okay, continue. When you finish the page, get a review again before you go finish all the other ones. So it's teaching people how to work through stuff so then they can get the feedback that they actually want and deserve, but it's in manageable chunks that nobody feels overwhelmed and daunted trying to check off everything. So started out there, and before they were released, I was going through the process of making an LLC and had to do a name change. So I started blogging during that tough project to start my career and called it Mentor Architect, and realized going for an LLC, because I had the word architect in the name, that I'd have to go for a professional LLC or a PLLC for the state of Pennsylvania. And talked to a couple friends because architecture firms, they have to be a PLLC in Pennsylvania or a corporation. And they're like, with the costs that they have to do every year to be a PLLC, it's not worth it. So they recommended I do a rebrand. And I like the word mentor part of it and trying to come up with a catchy other name, and realizing why so many architecture firms use acronyms for their business name or just their name is because so many names are taken already. And so it took me a while of just brain dumping, trying to use even AI to like come up with different things. And I ended up coming up with this one on my own. And I've actually gone back to try to figure out like how I got to the dino part. And it's one of those things where like you were just writing something and then the next sentence down was mentorDINO, and there's no like way for me to see how my brain connected it. It's a lot like sketching out ideas. And the DINO part stands for Designers Innovating New Opportunities. So I can add mentoring designers innovating new opportunities, pulling it all together. And as soon as I had Dino written down, I started sketching a little dinosaur. I actually drew cartoons when I was growing up, and had little comics I made. And so the dinosaur kind of connected it back to that drawing side whenever I first started, and created a fun side. I definitely pulled out trace paper to give him hats and stuff like off the bat. But when somebody works with me, they know I like to use emojis and GIFs and memes, no matter if it's challenging times or fun times or if somebody's tired. I always try to make people smile and laugh and have fun, because I know there are times when it's just not fun. And when you can laugh on a project team, no matter how hard it can be a game changer to your mental health, the person you go home to your family, and the person you are with the team, and growing that trust together. And so the dinosaur side is kind of that fun side I try to have, and have fun with him. So it's not just the word mentorDINO all the time. So I'm sorry if everybody gets tired of seeing the dinosaur everywhere, but it's better than seeing my face everywhere. So, but yeah, so that was kind of the initial steps, and just kind of letting people know who I am. I started the ARE series. I ran a panel discussion at Smith Group where 3 people gave their recent ARE experiences to people who are studying, don't forget to hit the subscribe and saw how different their story was from even me. And I'm like, oh, everybody has a very unique story, different challenges. So I'm like, let me see if people answer a questionnaire. When I first blogged, having guest bloggers was painful. So trying to send out questionnaires just to have people share their story. And I was so surprised on the people that gave their stories, the amount of failures people did. I know I failed 2 exams, and not that I was ashamed by that, but I definitely didn't like flaunt it. And I have people that failed 10, 11, 12, 14 exams and told me their story and were willing to put it out on the internet. And some of these stories, I cried. When you go through the process of going through the AREs, you understand the challenges. Even for those that never failed an exam, they still know what that's like to get through the process. And even if you just failed 1 exam, you know the gut punch that is. And then when you see 10, 12, and the person didn't give up, I more admire those professionals, not to put anybody above one another, but they went through some challenging times and really stuck to themselves and were able to get through it. Unfortunately, a lot of people thought that I was teaching the AREs. I found that as a problem. And I was about at a 50% return rate on people actually getting me their stories. So even though I've shared over 85, there's another 85, 90 professionals that said they'd give me their story and just never followed through. And some people, once I gave them the questionnaire, they said they weren't comfortable sharing the information, which is fine. But between it being difficult to get people to answer it and not wanting to be identified as an ARE person, I kind of wanted to be that your license, now what resource, or you're growing in your career, you're taking on team leadership or even leadership in your firm. That's kind of where I wanted mentorDINO to live. And that's where I have the most fun in. So if somebody sends me an ARE story, I'll release it. I've compiled everything into an ebook. I've got to add the rest in there. But I added workshops to start to work with people one-on-one. After going to the Women's Leadership Summit in Boston, so many people were excited about what mentorDINO is and what it wants to do and help. But it's really hard to sell to firms. We don't make the profits that we should.
Mm-hmm.
And so money is tight. And a lot of people don't care about professional development in terms of training their staff. They think their staff can just figure it out on their own, or maybe they'll do a little workshop, but that workshop's done by professionals that have no idea what the AEC industry is.
Mm-hmm.
So I released workshops. I gave a great workshop on communication, bringing together the local CSI and Young Architects Forum of Pittsburgh together. I love bringing together two different groups so then they can expand their network, but talk about communication in drawings from the specification side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been fun and fantastic, but definitely hard for firms to move forward. So I still offer that as an option.
Check out the description below.
But finding people care a little bit more about the details and getting their job done in a day.
Did you like the conversation
today? But trying to
today?
trick people into learning professional development as well.
Or a topic
and so
I should cover?
I launched the
Leave me a
mentorDINO
comment
network
below,
to do that.
and I will see what I can do to best
I am
answer
pulling
your questions.
together on that
And if you
side,
haven't done
asking
so
those
already,
manufacturers
subscribe
and
to the
trades,
channel.
what do
It
design
does
teams
really
keep
help
messing up?
others
What are
be
you
able
seeing
to
in the
find
field?
this
You're putting in
resource to
that
have
same
larger
product
conversations.
over and over and
leave me
over
a
again
comment and
on
subscribe.
10 different
I really
projects at one
appreciate
time.
your support.
Whereas architects have to learn one project at a time. Theoretically, it could be multiple. And so it's how can I learn by the people who are constantly seeing the issues and then put together what do you need to draw for them to bid it properly and install it? And maybe you don't need to draw 20 details. Maybe you just need 2. But what do you know for what they're bidding? Like I sit next to an electrical engineer that's bidding projects all the time. And I'm not going to lie, I always find it hilarious to see the projects that go out, what firms are doing them, and take a peek at their drawing quality. But he has struggles on bids. And he's like, they're not even telling me this information. And I'm like, well, yeah, if I could create a QA list on everything you need so it could be properly bid, then what better bids will you get back on bid day? What better contractors will you be able to have whenever your selection is a lot tighter of a window? And to make sure you got your scope covered. And so that was a way for me to kind of start building that database. But having my professional development courses already in there, I have a career coaching worksheet. So people don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a career coach when they just sometimes need a little help. But have those chats. And I know we have our first coffee chat tomorrow, seeing what everybody in the community wants to talk about. But I want to have a series on what it's like to be a parent in architecture. I want to grab people that are in different backgrounds, different stages of parenthood. Let's come in and talk about it. So then if you're looking to become a parent or just want somebody else to talk to or see what struggles other people are having trying to balance their career and parenthood and life, then let's talk about it, because we're all whole oneselves. And I just so happen we'll have technical details for you, other resources. So it's trying to be that one-stop shop to help people. We'll see if I have a small burnout course coming up. I'm debating on that. I may just do a what is burnout course and then have people come in. And if they're struggling, let's connect you with people that can help. Because like I said, everybody's burnout is so different and everybody's situation is so different. You can't really create a recorded course on it. At that point, I gotta like one-on-one coach somebody through it, or give them advice along the way or connect them with other people that had similar struggles. So then they can get that better coaching and mentoring that they need. So a lot of big plans and trying to even get into manufacturing plants to show people what mock-ups look like, how things get installed, and put it all together into one spot for people. So that's the latest development. And I even skipped over the podcast starting at the end of 2022, but we talked about it so much. So that one I have a lot more fun, I think, than the ARE stories. Just because I actually get to talk to somebody for an hour and learn a little bit about their career, learn about that community. I've met people all over the country. I should try to collect like all 50 states or something, because they've just been so much fun to learn from everybody. And everybody has such great advice. I learn something from every interview that I do.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Check out the description below for any resources, links, and contact information we discussed. Did you like the conversation today? Is there something you'd like to know more about or a topic I should cover? Leave me a comment below and I will see what I can do to best answer your questions. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. It does really help others be able to find this resource to have larger conversations. So leave me a comment and subscribe. I really appreciate your support.